I brought a special gift to my nephew's birthday, but his dad laughed at me in front of everyone. I didn't argue, I just quietly packed my things. And when I left, I took something that changed everything forever. "You make six figures and this is what you bring to my son's birthday?" That was the sentence that stopped the entire party. Everyone froze, mid-laugh, mid-drink, mid-bite. I was still standing there with a smile on my face, holding the box I had wrapped with care the night before. A brand new mini electric truck for my nephew Caleb. I thought he'd love it. I even made sure to pick one with rubber tires and a real working horn. But apparently, to my cousin Connor, that wasn't good enough. He said it loud, on purpose, and then he laughed. Not a playful laugh. A cruel, mocking one that made my face go hot and my stomach twist. The worst part? People joined in. His buddies from work, some of our extended family, even a few parents from Caleb's school. I saw Rachel, his wife, wince a little, but she didn't say anything. She just kept sipping her wine and avoided eye contact. I was stunned. Not just because of what he said, but because I had been there for them through everything. When Connor lost his job during the pandemic, I covered part of their mortgage for 4 months. When Caleb needed speech therapy, I paid for sessions without them even asking. I never made a big deal out of it. I wasn't trying to buy their love. I just didn't want to see them struggle. And now, I was being publicly mocked for not doing more. I set the gift down quietly and excused myself to the backyard. I needed a moment to breathe. I stared out at the fence and tried to calm the pounding in my chest. All I could think was, what the hell just happened? Connor followed me out a few minutes later, clearly feeling bold after a few beers. He leaned against the railing and said, "You've changed, Maddie. You used to go all out for Caleb. It's like now that you're making real money, you're embarrassed to spend it on family." I turned to look at him, stunned. "Are you serious right now?" I asked. "I've sent you money for years, helped cover bills, babysat whenever you asked, and you humiliate me like that, in front of your friends?" He shrugged like it was no big deal. "People noticed. It's weird when someone in the family's rich but acts broke." I think that was the moment something inside me shifted. All these years, I thought I was being generous. I thought I was supporting the people I loved. But now I realized they didn't see me as family. They saw me as a walking bank account, a backup plan, a person whose value was tied only to what I could give, not who I was. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just nodded and said, "Okay." And then I left. I didn't say goodbye to Caleb. I didn't even take the gift back. I got in my car and drove home, hands shaking, heart hollow. That night, I sat on my living room floor, surrounded by receipts and bank statements. I started tallying up how much money I had given Connor and Rachel over the last few years. It was over $11,500. That didn't even include the babysitting hours or the groceries I bought every time I visited. And for what? A punchline at a 6-year-old's party. I barely slept. My thoughts kept circling the same painful truth. I had built this. I had allowed it. But not anymore. The next morning, I logged into my bank and canceled every automatic transfer I had set up for them. Grocery app logins? Deleted. DoorDash credit? Gone. I even blocked their shared Amazon account from mine. I thought that would be the end of it. But then, just 3 days later, I got a phone call I never expected, from Rachel, and she was crying. "Maddie, I need to tell you something about Connor. It's about the money. Maddie, I need to tell you something about Connor. It's about the money." I froze. Rachel's voice was shaky, like she'd been holding it in for too long, and something in my gut told me this wasn't just a guilt trip. I stepped into my bedroom, shut the door behind me, and said carefully, "Okay." "I'm listening." She took a long breath. "You were right to cut us off. I didn't know how bad it really was until last night." She sounded like she was about to break. I stayed quiet, letting her speak at her pace. "Connor didn't use your money for the mortgage. Not most of it, anyway. He kept telling me he was transferring it to our joint account to help with bills, but I found out he's been putting it into a separate account, one I didn't even know existed. My breath caught. Rachel kept going. He's been gambling, Maddie. Online poker, crypto speculation, even some sketchy sports betting site. I only found out because he left his laptop open while he was in the shower, and I saw the transaction history. I sat down slowly on the edge of my bed. My mind was spinning. You're telling me, I said, trying to stay calm, that while I was sending money thinking I was helping you and Caleb, he was just blowing it? Rachel sniffled. I thought the bills were just tight. I didn't know he was lying to both of us. I leaned back, hand over my face. I felt disgusted. But more than that, I felt stupid. So stupid. I'd worked extra shifts, passed up vacations, cut back on luxuries, just to make sure Caleb had what he needed. And the whole time, Connor had been treating my money like poker chips. I'm sorry, Maddie, Rachel said quietly. You didn't deserve that. And Caleb didn't either. A part of me wanted to scream. Another part wanted to cry. But mostly, I just felt empty. Rachel admitted she didn't know what to do. She wanted to confront him, but she was scared. Of his temper, of the fallout, of what it would do to their son. I told her gently that I'd support her in whatever choice she made, but I also told her one thing with absolute certainty. I'm never giving him another cent, not ever again. We hung up, and I just sat in the dark for a long time. I kept thinking back to that birthday party, the way he smirked, the way people laughed. He humiliated me with money I gave him. He treated me like I was less than, because I had stopped playing the role of his personal ATM. And now, I was supposed to just move on? That weekend, I went to Caleb's school soccer game. Rachel had asked if I'd still show up for him, and of course, I said yes. He ran up to me with the biggest smile and gave me a hug that made my chest ache. He didn't know any of the drama. He just missed me. But Connor was there too. The moment he saw me, his smile dropped. He pulled Rachel aside, whispering aggressively, his hands waving. Rachel shook her head. I saw her push his hand away. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I knew exactly what was happening. He hated that he couldn't control me anymore. After the game, he walked up to me, that same fake smile plastered on his face. Hey, Maddie, he said, tone dripping with fake sweetness. Glad to see you've cooled off. I didn't respond. He leaned in, voice dropping. You made your little point, okay? Can we stop the drama now and get things back to normal? I looked him straight in the eye and said calmly, There's no going back to normal, Connor. You lied, you stole, and you humiliated me. His face twitched. Stole? Are you serious? You gave that money. No one forced you. That was it. The last thread snapped. I pulled out my phone, tapped a few times, and held it up so he could see the screen. Rachel gave me access to the hidden account. I know everything. The gambling, the lies, all of it. Connor went pale. You keep pushing me, I said quietly, and I will take this to a lawyer. He opened his mouth to say something, but nothing came out. I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there frozen on the grass. But I wasn't done yet. What he didn't know was that Rachel and I had already made a plan. A plan that, in less than 48 hours, would take everything Connor thought he controlled and put it in our hands instead. I thought confronting Connor at the soccer game would give me closure. I thought showing him the evidence, watching the color drain from his face, would make me feel vindicated. But it didn't. It only made me realize how far gone he was, and just how much deeper this rabbit hole went. The night after the game, Rachel and I stayed on the phone for over 2 hours. She confessed things I wish I didn't know, about how Connor had taken out a credit card in her name without her consent, how he'd drained Caleb's college savings, and how he was starting to get aggressive any time she brought up money. I feel like I'm living with a stranger, she whispered, and I can't let Caleb grow up thinking this is normal. That was when she told me her plan. She'd been documenting everything, every receipt, every transaction, even secretly recording a few conversations when Connor started gaslighting her. She already had a consultation with a lawyer. She was ready to leave. She just needed help executing the exit. And that's where I came in. I offered to cover the cost of a temporary apartment and help get her and Caleb out while Connor was at work. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about protecting a kid I loved and helping Rachel escape a man who clearly didn't care about anyone but himself. We scheduled the move for the following Thursday. Rachel said she'd act normal until then. Pack slowly, one box at a time, keep Caleb in the loop gently, and tell Connor she was taking him to visit her sister that morning. But of course, nothing ever goes to plan. That Tuesday night, I got a call from Rachel. Her voice was shaky, panicked. "He found the moving boxes in the garage. Maddie, he lost it. I think he knows." I grabbed my keys and drove to their house without thinking. When I pulled up, the porch light was off and every window was dark, but I could hear shouting from inside. I didn't even knock. I just walked in. Connor was pacing the living room, red-faced, shirt half-tucked, yelling at Rachel about betrayal and how ungrateful she was. Caleb sat on the stairs, clutching his stuffed turtle, eyes wide with fear. When Connor saw me, he pointed and barked, "Of course! Of course she's here. You two think you're smart, huh? You think you can just take my kid and run off?" I walked over to Caleb, knelt down, and said gently, "Go grab your coat, buddy. You're coming with me." Connor lunged forward, but Rachel stepped between us. "Touch him and I'll call the police," she said. Her voice didn't even shake. He stopped. For a second, I actually saw fear in his eyes. Not anger, not arrogance, fear. I took Caleb's hand, and Rachel followed us out. She had already packed a go-bag and stuffed it in my trunk earlier that week, just in case. I got them into the car, locked the doors, and drove. We didn't stop until we were 2 cities over, at a short-term rental I'd booked under my name. Rachel cried when we arrived, not out of fear, but out of relief. "I didn't think I could actually do it," she whispered. "Thank you." I hugged her. "You did the hard part. I just drove." For the next few days, we kept a low profile. Rachel's lawyer filed for emergency custody, citing emotional instability and financial abuse. Caleb went to school remotely. Everything felt surreal, like we were watching someone else's life unravel from behind a glass wall. And then the twist came. I got a call from Rachel's lawyer late Friday afternoon. "There's something you both need to see," she said. She emailed over a PDF with the subject line, "Unauthorized transactions, Connor G." At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Then my eyes widened. Connor hadn't just been gambling. He had been transferring money from my Venmo and Zelle accounts, months after I thought I'd cut him off. Somehow, he'd linked an old connected card I forgot existed. Thousands. Gone. He'd been stealing from me, under my nose, even after everything. I stared at the screen in disbelief. This man laughed at my gift, humiliated me, stole from me, and tried to tear down his own family. And now? Now he was about to find out what happens when you push the wrong person too far. I always thought I was the type to avoid conflict. But something changed after I saw the transaction report from Rachel's lawyer. Seeing my name tied to stolen money I hadn't authorized, realizing that Connor had slithered his way back into my finances even after I cut him off. That flipped a switch. I wasn't going to be quiet anymore. I wasn't going to be polite. I was going to make him regret ever thinking I was weak enough to keep forgiving him. The first thing I did was call my bank and freeze everything, even accounts I barely used. Then I spent 2 hours combing through every linked service, every credit card, every old auto payment from the past 3 years. And there it was. A debit card I had given him once, 5 years ago, when his car broke down and he just needed gas. He must have saved the info and waited for the right moment to use it again. I reported it as fraud and submitted everything to my bank's dispute team. But that wasn't enough. I needed to make sure this man never had the opportunity to exploit anyone else again, especially his son. Rachel was already knee-deep in legal filings, but I suggested something new. We go public. Not online, not dramatic. but strategic. See, Connor had recently applied for a small business loan through a local mentorship grant. He'd been bragging about it to people at Caleb's school pickup line, acting like some hotshot, self-made entrepreneur. The application required background checks and statements of financial responsibility. That gave me an opening. I contacted the program directly, politely, formally, professionally. I told them I had relevant documentation about Connor's financial history, including ongoing investigations for fraud and misuse of funds. I didn't make accusations. I simply offered to send over the receipts, bank statements, Venmo records, the lawyer's letter. They didn't respond right away, but I knew they saw it. Meanwhile, Rachel moved into a more permanent apartment. I helped her furnish it. Caleb got into a new school and started smiling more. The guilt I'd carried for so long, that somehow I was selfish for setting boundaries, started to lift. But Connor didn't stay quiet for long. The messages started small, passive-aggressive texts, emails with subject lines like, "We need to talk," or "You've made your point." I ignored them. Then came the voicemail. "You think you can ruin my life and walk away like some hero?" His voice hissed through my phone speaker. "You're not family. You're a parasite with a savior complex. And when this all comes crashing down, don't come crying back." I saved the voicemail and forwarded it to Rachel's lawyer. But the real climax came the following Thursday. I was working late when I got a call from Rachel. She was breathless, almost in shock. "You're not going to believe this," she said. "The loan program called. They denied Connor's application because of financial inconsistencies and unresolved allegations. He's livid. Maddie, he just found out today, and he lost it." Apparently, Connor had marched into their old house, where Rachel's sister was still living temporarily, and trashed the garage, yelling about betrayal, about being set up, about ruined futures. The police were called. They didn't arrest him, but they issued a warning and documented the incident. And then Rachel said something that made my blood run cold. "He wasn't yelling just about us. He said someone, he didn't say your name, but I know he meant you, had planted evidence to take him down." That was enough for me to change my locks, upgrade my home security, and put my neighbors on alert. I wasn't scared. I was prepared. But then, later that night, while I was reviewing my email, I saw something in my inbox that made me sit straight up. An encrypted message from the loan program, with a subject line, "Additional evidence provided by applicant's spouse. Confidential." I opened the file. It was a video. A phone recording, shaky and dim, clearly shot through a cracked bedroom door. It showed Connor, at his computer, logging into my old bank account, reading my saved info off a handwritten notebook. Rachel had recorded him weeks ago, before she left. Before I ever confronted him. She had been documenting him the whole time, silently, collecting everything. I hadn't just exposed him, she had set the trap, and now it had snapped shut. Watching that video of Connor logging into my old account, I think that was the first time I felt true, bone-deep satisfaction. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about payback. It was about finally seeing, with undeniable proof, what I had known in my gut all along. This man had never respected boundaries, had never valued the people trying to help him, and had no problem stealing from those closest to him if it meant protecting his fragile ego. The video, combined with Rachel's documents and my transaction records, was enough to build a full case. Rachel's lawyer moved fast. She filed for sole custody of Caleb, citing financial manipulation, verbal intimidation, and digital theft. I submitted a sworn statement to support the claim. Connor, of course, lost it again. He sent threatening messages, which we immediately forwarded to authorities. The judge issued a temporary restraining order for both me and Rachel. Then came the real blow. The DA's office opened a formal investigation into financial fraud and identity misuse. Connor wasn't just being shamed at Caleb's school pickup anymore. He was being questioned by detectives. And the cherry on top? His small business loan status was quietly updated to permanently disqualified from future application due to misconduct. Rachel told me he lost one of his freelance contracts too. Word gets around fast when you're caught using someone else's banking credentials. I didn't gloat. I didn't post anything online. I didn't even tell most of my friends what was happening. I didn't need to. The man who once laughed at my birthday gift, called me stingy, humiliated me in front of strangers, and treated me like a wallet with legs, was now sitting in a rented basement apartment with no savings, no job offers, limited custody rights, and no more control. Meanwhile, Rachel is thriving. She got a part-time job she loves. Caleb is adjusting beautifully to his new school, and their apartment is finally starting to feel like a real home. The place is small, but it's peaceful, safe. And me? I'm good. For the first time in years, I've set clear boundaries. I've learned how to say no without guilt. I'm back in therapy, and I've reconnected with people who love me for me, not what I can give them. It took years to see it, but I understand now. Family doesn't mean loyalty at all costs. It means mutual respect. It means love with accountability. It means protecting your peace, even when it means walking away from people who share your blood. Connor thought he could shame me into silence. Instead, he taught me how to stand up and never sit back down again. And if you've ever been made to feel small for standing your ground, if someone ever tried to guilt you for not giving more, doing more, sacrificing more, drop a 2 in the comments. And remember to hit that subscribe button for more real stories like this one. You're not alone. You never were. Thank you for listening.